good morning, my dear friends. January has come, so the frost is stronger. And if it's January, then of course we can unofficially call this the beginning of the gardening season. So today I'll tell you about the things that I will still be doing in the garden as well as those that I won't be doing yet. My dear friends, before I tell you what I'll be doing in the garden this January and what I won't be doing, I encourage you to write about what activities you do in your garden in January. Because maybe there's something I haven't thought of, and you do it every year, and the most important thing is to adjust the schedule of such tasks, especially in January. It's important for the place where you live because there are differences between one part of the country and another, or not even just the country, because there are people watching us from other places around the world. It's like this. Winter comes a little later or a little earlier. And remember to adjust it because it's not a one-to-one thing. That if someone says, listen, in the middle of January you have to do this and that, you absolutely have to do it. Adjust it to the conditions. I will try to tell you when it's best to do it, when to whitewash fruit trees and shrubs in the garden, and how to do it in the best way. If you plan to do it in March, it will basically be too late. Because it's not about the visual aspect, it's about protection. Especially against the sun that appears in January and February, the sun that is very intense during the day, and in the evening when it's gone, the frost comes. Why do we whitewash fruit trees? First of all, it's mainly for this reason, so that the bark of such trees doesn't heat up from the sun, because the dark color of the tree causes the sun's rays to be absorbed more, and the bark heats up. And then the plant may start to release its sap. And in the evening or at night when frost comes and there's no sun, the bark is still warm and the frost cracks the bark, causing these fissures to appear, and then the frost can get inside the plant. Various pathogens can get in. That's why we whitewash such trees. You should whitewash them with lime, for example, with an additive. Emulsion paint so it doesn't wash off, and we whitewash not just a little but as much as we can, meaning all the main branches. Of course, if you're lucky enough to own such older trees, that's great. I don't have fruit trees in my garden, but I do have some young plantings that I'll also be whitewashing. It's best to do this on a windy day because it will dry quickly. And remember to do it as early as possible. You could even do it in December, and January is already a must-have. So that our plants stay healthy and the harsh sun that appears in January doesn't cause us a lot of damage here. Remember, not in March but in January. What should we do with rhododendrons, thuja, or cherry laurel in winter so that they grow beautifully in the spring? Physiological drought. Physiological drought is what affects evergreen plants like rhododendrons in winter. Cherry laurels or thuja in winter, when their roots are frozen and their leaves are exposed to the sun warms them up and dries them out. The plant. It really wants to drink then, but it can't because its root ball is frozen and those roots are actually frozen. This causes it to have a water deficiency in the spring, and the whole shrub or some shoots may dry out during the winter. What is the solution to this? First of all, whenever there's a thaw, even a short one, take a watering can in winter, grab a watering can and water those plants. They will definitely reward you in the spring with beautiful growth and lush greenery. This is very necessary. The same thing, my dear friends, applies to our plantings, for example, bulb plants in pots, like the popular lasagna style or classic bulb plantings. Remember, you need to check the moisture of those pots. If there is a long-lasting frost, the soil dries out from the sun and evaporation, so when there are any small thaws, check the moisture and water a little so that our bulbs get some water and don't dry out, because otherwise they simply won't sprout later. Another thing is the so-called heaving of plants. Yes, heaving of plants caused by frost. If you have perennials planted and there is a severe frost, sometimes these perennials get pushed up, meaning they are heaved. The frost expands the water and the perennials lift up a bit. It's worth taking a walk around the garden sometimes to see if the perennials, especially those that were planted last year, haven't been pushed up. If they've been pushed up, it's best to cover them slightly. It's completely different if we have a thick layer of snow, then we don't really worry about things like that. But if we don't have any snow, then check. These perennials, especially the ones up there, were planted at the end of the season because in fact the root ball can be pushed out. A biological time bomb in the garden. There are at least 2 situations like that in the garden where such a bomb can occur. The first place is in orchards and on fruit trees, especially on apple trees, when so-called mummies hang on the apple tree, meaning the remains of unharvested fruit, that is, apples that are still hanging on the branches. In January, you absolutely need to collect them in any way you can, but remember not to throw them, for example, onto the compost. In these mummies, meaning in these apples, there are plenty of spores of rotten mold, which, if they spread onto the fresh buds of the apple tree in the spring, then your harvest is already ruined. And the same goes for example, roses like these. If on your roses, both climbing and bedding ones, there are flower heads left that have turned into these mummies, we absolutely have to remove them because here too a lot of different spores gather which can later spread onto the fresh rose buds. So January is definitely the time to do just that. Later, we will take care of the roses and prune them thoroughly, but in January, let's remove these mummies from the apple trees and roses. Stop. Don't do that. One walk on such a frozen lawn, and in the spring you'll have black rotten spots on that lawn. Why, if there's no heavy snow, just frost or a thin layer of snow, shouldn't we walk on the lawn? Because every step breaks the blades of grass, which actually behave like glass. Even a gentle touch will break the conductive bundles. Mold gets into those conductive bundles. And in the spring, the lawn is ready to look just like a rotten lawn, not like a fresh green lawn. Remember this when walking in the garden, of course. If there is no frost, you can walk freely in the garden, but if there is frost and a thin layer of snow, use the garden paths and limit walking on the lawn. Check your dahlias in January before the smell of rot greets you in the room where you store those dahlias. That's my good advice, which has worked for many years when storing dahlias. I don't know if it's the same for you, but storing dahlias is a real kind of roulette. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Let me know if it's the same for you. For the past few years, I've been storing dahlias without any problems, and I've shown how I do it in other videos. And today I want to tell you that actually in January, at the beginning of January, it's the right time to check the place where you keep your dahlias. To grab a dahlia tuber and check if it hasn't rotted. If you notice rot and the tubers are soft, you absolutely need to throw them away immediately. If they are wrinkled and very dried out, you can gently mist them or cover them with moist sawdust, moist sand, or moist soil. Ever since I started digging up dahlias very late and not cleaning off the soil that's stuck to them. If there is a small tuber in between, it still stores perfectly. I keep them in these little boxes, and in January I check how they're doing. And honestly, I check it once a month. I pick a specific week and go to my garage. Today I took them out here to show you. I check if they're doing well. The ones that are bad I throw away, but honestly there's very little waste. Let me know if you have this problem with dahlias, or if you think it's a bit of a gamble, or maybe you handle it really well. As you can see, January is a time when you can already start doing something in the garden. When it comes to the new season, you can also still finish work from the previous season. If you have everything prepared and you're waiting, sitting, contemplating, then of course I encourage you to subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what you're waiting for this spring. I also encourage you to check back here in a moment, because I'm already holding the pruner in my hand, and in the next episode I've decided to use it, and I'll tell you what you can still do in January with a pruner in the garden. So I encourage you to stay with me, subscribe, and watch the next episode.